The message burst across the void like a supernova, shattering 250 years of utter silence from the blue-green world that the Galactic Concord had long since written off as a failed experiment. Grand Admiral Verixian of the Ashtari Dominion nearly dropped his ceremonial chalice when his neural implant pinged with the priority alert. He excused himself from the diplomatic banquet, leaving a table of confused ambassadors from 17 species, and hurried to the command center of the massive orbital station Eternal Vigilance. "Verify this," he demanded, his four eyes blinking in rapid succession as he stared at the holographic display. "If this is some ensign's idea of humor, they'll be scrubbing waste reclamation tubes until their offspring's offspring come of age." Fleet. Commander Lysithea, her scaled skin shifting from diplomatic azure to a nervous purple, manipulated the console with practiced precision. "Verified through 3 independent arrays, Admiral. The signal originates from Sol through Earth. After 248 standard years of absolute silence, they're broadcasting." The command center fell quiet. Even the habitual hum of conversations among the duty officers ceased. "What are they saying?" Verixian finally asked. Lysithea's expression shifted to bewilderment. It's mathematics, Admiral. But unlike anything in our archives, they're describing a new form of dimensional engineering that appears to circumvent the rhodium principle." "Impossible," whispered Verixian, all 4 hands gripping the command rail. "That would mean—" "Yes." Lysithea's scales now flushed a vibrant gold of excitement. "If their equations are correct, they've solved FTL without quantum destabilization. The implications hit the Admiral like a gravity wave. 250 years ago, humanity had been a promising if troublesome newcomer to the galactic stage. Their innovation rate had been alarming, their adaptability unprecedented. The Concord's intervention had been swift and, supposedly, merciful. Earth was isolated, not destroyed. A quantum barrier erected around their solar system. Let them develop in peace, but contained, until they matured enough for reintegration. Or so the official narrative went. But Verixian had seen the classified archives. The truth was far more pragmatic. Humanity had been quarantined because they were simply too unpredictable, too dangerous. Their mathematical approaches alone threatened to upend millennia of established theory. Their biological resilience made them nearly impossible to subjugate through conventional means. And now, after a quarter millennium of silence, precisely, when the Concord had assumed they'd either stagnated or destroyed themselves, Earth was broadcasting mathematical proofs that made a mockery of established physics. "There's more," Lysithea continued, her voice barely audible. "The signal concludes with coordinates and a time. They're requesting a diplomatic meeting." Verixian's inner eyelids fluttered nervously. "Where?" "That's just it, Admiral." Lysithea looked up, her scales now white with shock. "The coordinates are for the Nexus Junction, the very center of conquered territory." "That's 11,000 light-years from Earth," Verixian whispered. "With the barrier in place, they'd need centuries to—" The station's alarms suddenly blared. A junior officer shouted over the cacophony, "Massive energy signature detected! Something's emerging from slipspace directly ahead!" The massive view screen shifted to show the fabric of space itself folding inward like crumpled paper, then tearing open. Through this impossible wound in reality emerged a vessel of gleaming silver and blue, its design unlike anything in Concord. Records. No visible engines. No radiation signature. Just pure, elegant purpose given physical form. "Incoming transmission," called the communications officer, mandibles clicking in agitation. Admiral Verixian straightened his ceremonial armor and nodded. "Put it through." The holographic display flickered, and a figure appeared, unmistakably human, yet somehow both familiar and utterly foreign. Ambassador Khalil Reigen smiled with an easy confidence that sent chills down Verixian's spine. "After 250 years, she said simply, "we believe it's time we had a conversation." Ambassador Khalil Reagan stood aboard the Quantum Harbinger, Earth's first diplomatic vessel in 2.5 centuries, studying the massive Concorde station through the observation deck's transparent aluminum viewport. She straightened the sleeves of her midnight blue uniform adorned with a single symbol, Earth's new insignia, a phoenix rising from planetary rings. "They're scrambling," reported Captain Elio Dasari, his dark eyes twinkling with barely contained amusement. The neural implant at his temple pulsed softly with information feeds. 17 different species on that station, and our sensors indicate they're all approaching various stages of what we would categorize as panic. Callio allowed herself a small smile. 250 years is a long time to forget why you feared someone in the first place. The ship's AI, Prometheus, manifested beside them as a columnar swirl of golden light. "Ambassador, I've completed analysis of their defensive systems. Their technology has advanced approximately 30% beyond our historical records, primarily in energy efficiency rather than fundamental capability." As expected, Callio nodded. "Innovation requires friction. The Concorde's harmony comes at a steep price." Admiral Severia Kelth entered the observation deck, her weathered face a map of the hardships humanity had endured during their isolation. At 167 years old, kept vital by regenerative technologies developed during the silence, she was one of the few who remembered the early years after the quarantine. "The delegation is ready," she announced. "Though I still believe this is premature. We could have simply bypassed their barrier entirely without announcing ourselves. Struck from the shadows." Callio turned from the viewport. "That's precisely why I'm the diplomat, and you're the Admiral, Severia. We didn't spend 2 centuries rebuilding our civilization to emerge as conquerors." "No." Admiral Kelth's voice hardened. "Just as equals who can't be caged again." The ship's communication system chimed. "Ambassador," Prometheus announced, "Grand Admiral Verixian of the Ashtari Dominion requests permission to board with a small delegation." "Permission granted," Callio replied. "Guide them to the Harmony Chamber." 30 minutes later, Callio studied the alien delegation as they cautiously entered the ship's diplomatic hall, a soaring space of curved walls and floating platforms, designed specifically to accommodate the varied physiologies of Concorde species. The aliens moved with obvious discomfort, eyes and sensory organs darting in all directions. Grand Admiral Verixian, tallest among them, approached with measured steps. "Ambassador Reagan, your arrival has caused considerable concern." "I imagine it has," Callio replied calmly. "Finding that your cage no longer contains its occupant must be rather disconcerting." A Malorian diplomat, body wrapped in ceremonial bindings, hissed softly. "The quantum barrier was for your own protection. Your species was deemed too aggressive for unrestricted interstellar access." "An interesting perspective," Callio smiled. "We called it the long night. But night always ends, Counselor Thrix. Dawn always comes." Verixian's 4 eyes narrowed. "How do you know the Counselor's name? Our records indicate Earth has been completely isolated." "Completely isolated doesn't mean completely unaware," Captain Dasari interjected, stepping forward. "Your barrier prevented conventional travel and communication, yes. But there are spaces between spaces, ways of listening. We've been observing the Concorde for over a century." The revelation sent visible shock waves through the delegation. Of Ostygian representatives' chromatophores flashed bright orange in distress. "Impossible," whispered an avian diplomat. "The barrier was absolute, designed by our greatest minds, and therein lies the first lesson we hope you'll take from this meeting," Callio said, gesturing for the aliens to take their seats as refreshments materialized on the central table. "What one mind can design, another can circumvent. Isolation didn't weaken humanity. It forced us to innovate beyond conventional boundaries. You speak as though we should fear you, Verixian said carefully. Kaleo shook her head. Not fear, Admiral. Respect. There's a difference. We've come not for retribution, but restoration. Earth wishes to rejoin galactic society as equals, not subjects. And if we refuse? The question came from a previously silent figure at the back, a Kavaner elder, their crystalline form refracting light in complex patterns. Ambassador Reigen's smile never wavered as she activated a holographic display above the table. It showed the Quantum Harbinger's journey, how it had effortlessly bypassed the barrier, traversed 11,000 light-years in moments, and appeared undetected at the heart of Concord's space. With respect, Elder Rosentek, she said softly, refusal isn't an option you possess anymore. The silence following Kaleo's statement stretched like a tensile wire. Finally, Verixian leaned forward, his four-fingered hands forming the traditional Ashtari gesture of reluctant concession. Your demonstration is compelling, Ambassador. Yet I sense this display of technological superiority isn't why you've truly come. Kaleo nodded appreciatively. Perceptive, Admiral. You're correct. She activated a secondary holographic display, revealing a three-dimensional map of the galaxy with pulsing red nodes scattered throughout unexplored regions. We've detected something the Concord hasn't, something approaching. The alien delegation shifted uncomfortably. Counselor Thrix's bindings tightened reflexively. Explain. When the quantum barrier went up, humanity looked inward first. As you intended, Kaleo began, pacing slowly around the table. We rebuilt, reimagined our societies, healed our planet. But eventually we looked outward again, not with ships, you'd prevented that, but with instruments of our own design. Quantum resonance arrays that could perceive beyond the barrier. Captain Dassery continued seamlessly. 73 years ago, we detected gravitational anomalies in the spaces between galaxies. 49 years ago, we confirmed they were artificial in origin. 26 years ago, we deciphered enough of their communication spectrum to understand their intent, which is. Elder Rosentek's crystalline form vibrated with tension. Kaleo's expression grew somber. Consumption. They call themselves the Void Confluence. They don't colonize or conquer. They harvest. Entire star systems converted to energy. To fuel their migration between galaxies. They've done this before countless times, and now they've chosen our galaxy. The holographic display shifted to show massive structures, organic yet mechanical, drifting between stars at the galaxy's edge. Preposterous, sputtered a Telosian diplomat, his facial tentacles writhing. We have the most advanced monitoring networks in civilized space. We would have detected such a threat. Would you? Admiral Kelth entered the conversation, her voice hard-edged. Your species has been at peace for 12,000 years. Peace breeds complacency. Complacency breeds blindness. The confluence operates outside conventional detection parameters, Prometheus explained, his golden form expanding to interface with the ship's systems. They communicate through subspace torsion fields that your systems would interpret as background radiation variances. Their hulls absorb rather than reflect sensor sweeps. To conventional Concord technology, they're effectively invisible. Verixian's complexion paled to a sickly yellow. If what you say is true, and I emphasize, why come to us? Why not simply save yourselves with this impressive technology you've developed? Kaleo returned to her seat, leaning forward intently. Because humanity remembers what it means to be part of something larger than ourselves. Because despite your quarantine, we still consider ourselves part of this galaxy's tapestry. And practically speaking, because even with our advancements, we cannot face this threat alone. She gestured, and the hologram shifted to show projections, casualty figures, resource allocations, defense scenarios. Our models give the galaxy 8 years before the first major incursion. Within 17 years, 30% of all inhabited systems will be consumed without unified resistance. The delegation erupted in overlapping voices: denial, outrage, disbelief. Verixian silenced, then with a sharp gesture. "Assuming we believe you, Ambassador, what exactly are you proposing?" "An alliance," Kallio replied simply. "Humanity's innovation combined with the Concord's resources and reach. We've prepared comprehensive plans for technological integration, military coordination, and civilian protection." "You've thought of everything," Verixian noted suspiciously. "We've had 250 years to consider our return to the galactic stage," Admiral Kelth said. "We didn't waste the time." Elder Rosentek's crystalline form shifted hues, indicating deep thought. "This could be elaborate deception, a justification for your re-emergence, perhaps even revenge for your isolation." Kallio nodded. "A reasonable suspicion, which is why we're prepared to provide coordinates for Concord scientists to verify independently. We'll share our detection methodology." "And in exchange," Counselor Thrix demanded, "the barrier comes down. Immediately. Humanity is recognized as a sovereign power, not a protectorate. And we receive proportional representation in whatever unified command structure is established to face this threat." The avian diplomat fluttered agitated wings. "Outrageous. You cannot dictate terms when we've just demonstrated the ability to appear unannounced at the heart of your civilization," Captain Dasari interrupted, his voice level but firm. "When we've solved travel problems your scientists declared impossible? When we're offering you the only warning you'll get before extinction arrives?" Kallio raised a calming hand. "What my captain means is that this isn't a negotiation of whether humanity rejoins galactic society. That decision has already been made. We're negotiating how we work together against a common threat." Verixian studied her for a long moment. "You know we'll need to consult the full Concord Assembly." "Of course," Kallio smiled. "We'll wait. Though not here, if you don't mind. Our vessel will relocate to the edge of this system." "And if the Assembly rejects your assessment?" Verixian asked. Ambassador Reigen's expression hardened just slightly, the first crack in her diplomatic facade. "Then humanity will prepare alone, Admiral. And when the confluence comes, we'll remember who chose blindness over partnership." The Concord Assembly. Hall teemed with representatives from 217 species, their cacophony of voices, clicks, telepathic pulses, and pheromone signals creating a storm of communication that the automated translation systems struggled to process. At the center dais, Grand Admiral Verixian addressed the gathered delegates, his voice amplified throughout the massive chamber. "The evidence provided by the humans has been verified by our own scientists," he announced, causing the chamber to erupt once more. He waited for the noise to subside before continuing. 3 independent expedition teams confirmed anomalous energy signatures at the coordinates they provided. The threat appears genuine. High Counselor Arivax of the Malorian. Compact rose from her hovering platform, her ceremonial bindings glowing with bioluminescent patterns denoting extreme skepticism. "Even if this void confluence exists, we have only humanity's word on their intentions. This could be an elaborate ploy to force their readmission to galactic affairs. A ploy that involved solving impossible physics problems and appearing undetected at our strategic command center," countered Representative Jewell, his insectoid mandibles clicking rapidly. "If humanity wanted dominance, they would not announce themselves with warnings. They would simply act." The debate raged for 12 standard hours. On the Quantum Harbinger, positioned at the edge of the Nexus system as promised, Ambassador Kallio Reigen monitored the proceedings through their quantum observation feeds. Captain Dasari paced restlessly behind her. "They speak in circles," he muttered. "Every minute spent debating is another minute lost in preparation." Kallio remained composed. "This is how the Concord has always functioned. Deliberate to the point of paralysis. It's both their greatest strength and their critical weakness. Admiral Kelth entered the bridge, her expression grim. Latest projections from Prometheus. The Confluence Advance elements could reach the outer arm systems within 7 years, not 8, as we initially calculated. Have you informed the Concord? Khalil asked. I attempted to, Kelth replied. They've restricted our communication channels. Apparently, some factions view our continued surveillance of their proceedings as provocative. Khalil allowed herself a frustrated sigh. 250 years and they haven't changed at all. Still afraid of what they don't understand. The ship's sensors suddenly registered multiple energy signatures emerging from slip space. 5 Concord vessels, not the heavy dreadnoughts. They might have expected, but diplomatic cruisers materialized at a respectful distance. Incoming transmission, announced Prometheus. The holographic display activated, revealing Grand Admiral Virixian alongside a tall, willowy figure Kallio recognized as Premier Isolde of the Solarian Republic, the current head of the Concord. Assembly. Ambassador Reigen, Premier Isolde began, her melodic voice conveying grave formality. The Assembly has reached its decision. Kallio straightened. We're listening, Premier. The quantum barrier surrounding Sol system will be deactivated within 30 standard days, Isolde declared. Humanity will be granted provisional member status within the Concord, with the right to establish embassies and trading posts in designated sectors. Before Kallio could respond, Isolde continued. However, your technological advancements, particularly your novel approach to faster-than-light travel, must be shared with and verified by Concord scientists. Furthermore, joint task forces will be established to investigate this void confluence threat before committing significant resources to countermeasures. Kallio exchanged glances with Admiral Kelth and Captain Dasari. This was less than they'd hoped for, but more than they'd feared. And our request for proportional representation in defense planning? Kallio asked carefully. Virixian answered this time. Humanity will have advisory status on the Strategic Command Council. Full membership will be considered after a probationary period of 50 standard years. 50 years? Admiral Kelth stepped forward, indignation clear in her voice. The confluence will have consumed half the galaxy by then. If your projections are accurate, Premier Isolde replied smoothly. Many in the Assembly remain skeptical. Kallio raised a hand to silence Kelth's brewing outburst. Premier Isolde, with respect, 50 years is unacceptable. The threat we face doesn't operate on diplomatic timetables. We proposed partnership, not subjugation. And the Assembly has generously offered reintegration, despite your provocative display of technological superiority, Isolde countered. These terms are non-negotiable, Ambassador. Kallio's expression remained neutral, but her eyes hardened. She nodded once to Captain Dasari, who touched his neural implant. Across the Nexus system, subspace sensors suddenly activated on platforms that the Concord hadn't even detected. Displays on both the Quantum Harbinger and the Concord vessels flickered simultaneously, showing real-time data streams about the approaching threat, far more detailed than what humanity had initially shared. This is a direct feed from our deep space monitoring network, Kallio explained calmly. As you can see, the confluence has already established beachheads in 7 systems at the galactic periphery. Their conversion process has begun. Virixian's 4 eyes widened as he studied the data. These systems aren't on any Concord charts. Because they're beyond your sensor range, Admiral Kelth replied. Beyond anyone's range except ours. Kallio leaned forward. Premier, Admiral, we don't have 50 years. We don't have 5. Earth is prepared to share our advancements, but as partners, not subordinates. We need full representation immediately, not advisory status. Premier Isolde's expression remained impassive, but the slight tremor in her elongated fingers betrayed her concern. The Assembly has rendered its decision, Ambassador. Then perhaps the Assembly should reconsider, Khalil replied, her voice taking on an edge of steel. Because Earth has made its decision as well. We stand ready to help defend this galaxy, our shared home, but only as equals. The choice is yours. The communication ended, leaving the bridge in tense silence. They'll reconvene, Captain Dasari predicted. This new data will force their hand. Admiral Kelth looked less convinced. Pride has doomed more civilizations than any external threat. The conquered may prefer destruction over admitting humanity as equals. Callio turned from the displays, her resolve evident. Then we proceed to Contingency Plan Omega. If the Concord won't act, humanity will. 3 days of silence followed. The quantum harbinger remained at its position, a gleaming testament to humanity's perseverance. Inside, preparations continued unabated. Our network detects increased activity at Confluence Beachhead Beta 7, reported Lieutenant Nyoko Okada, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. The conversion process has accelerated by approximately 18%. Ambassador Khalil Reigen nodded grimly. She hadn't slept in 36 hours, sustaining herself with metabolic enhancers as she coordinated with Earth's Leadership Council. Prometheus, status update on Contingency Plan Omega? The AI's golden form materialized beside her. The Resonance Fleet has completed final preparations, Ambassador. All 70 vessels are ready for phase shift on your command. Defensive platforms have been positioned at key junctions in the predicted confluence approach vectors. And the evacuation protocols? She asked. Proceeding as scheduled, Prometheus confirmed. Priority cultural and historical archives have been transferred to secure locations. Civilian population centers are implementing dispersal planning, though public knowledge remains limited to prevent panic. Admiral Kelth entered the bridge, her expression uncharacteristically solemn. We should initiate the Aurora Protocol. If the Concord won't stand with us, we need to activate our hidden shipyards. Khalil hesitated. The Aurora Protocol represented humanity's most drastic contingency, the rapid militarization of their entire industrial capacity. Once initiated, there would be no turning back. Captain Dasari's voice cut through her thoughts. Multiple slipspace. Ruptures detected. Conquered signatures, nearly 100 vessels. The view screen shifted to show a massive fleet materializing around them, not just diplomatic vessels this time, but dreadnoughts, carriers, and battlecruisers bearing the insignia of a dozen different Concord species. Are they targeting weapons? Admiral Kelth demanded, already moving toward the tactical station. Negative, Lieutenant Okada replied, sounding surprised. Their weapon systems remain dormant. They're forming an escort formation around us. A communication request chimed through the system. When activated, the holographic display showed not just Grand Admiral Verixian and Premier Isolde, but the entire Conquered High Command, representatives from the founding species arranged in their traditional concentric circle. Premier Isolde spoke first. Ambassador Reigen, the Conquered Assembly has reconvened in emergency session. I can see that, Khalil replied cautiously. That's quite the escort you've brought, Premier. Not an escort, Ambassador, corrected Verixian. A response force, Elder. Rosintek's crystalline form shifted forward. Your data has been verified beyond doubt. The Void Confluence represents an existential threat to all civilized life in our galaxy. The Assembly has voted unanimously for the first time in 7 centuries to initiate Article Primaris. Khalil exchanged glances with her officers. Article Primaris was the Concord's ultimate emergency protocol, never before invoked in its 12,000-year history. And what does that mean for Earth? She asked carefully. It means, Ambassador, Premier Isolde replied, that the Conquered acknowledges its error in isolating humanity. The quantum barrier will be deactivated immediately. All restrictions on human movement, colonization, and technological development are hereby rescinded. A murmur of surprise ran through the harbingers. Bridge crew. Furthermore, continued Isolde, in recognition of humanity's unique contributions and perspective, Earth is granted permanent seat on the High Command with immediate effect. We request your presence and your expertise as we organize our response to this threat. Admiral Kelth's eyes narrowed suspiciously. A remarkable change of heart in 3 days, Premier. Counselor Thrix's bindings rippled with what translated as uncomfortable acknowledgement. Not a change of heart, Admiral. A recognition of necessity. Your monitoring network detected advanced elements of the confluence. Our scientists have now confirmed a much larger mass approaching, 3 times the size of your initial estimates. The holographic display shifted to show massive structures moving through the void between stars. Organic mechanical hybrids that defied conventional classification. Unlike the beautiful symmetry of conquered vessels or the elegant efficiency of human ships, these were grotesque, asymmetrical constructs that seemed to violate the very principles of physics. This recording comes from the Termani Deep Space Observatory, Verixian explained, a conquered research outpost beyond the galaxy's rim. The observatory went silent 12 hours after transmitting this footage. Kallio studied the images, her expression grave. They're coming faster than we predicted. Yes, Premier Isolde confirmed. Based on combined analysis of your data and ours, we estimate first major incursions will begin within 18 months, not 7 years. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Finally, Kallio straightened her uniform and faced the conquered leadership squarely. Premier Isolde, Grand Admiral Verixian, distinguished representatives of the Concord. Humanity accepts your offer. We will join you at the High Command. She paused, then continued with quiet intensity. But understand this. We come not as supplicants, grateful for readmission, but as equals bringing critical capabilities to this fight. The quarter millennium of silence has ended, and humanity's voice will be heard clearly now. Premier Isolde inclined her head in solemn agreement. We would expect nothing less, Ambassador. The Concord has existed for 12 millennia, but perhaps we had grown too comfortable in our certainties. Sometimes it takes an outsider to reveal the danger at our gates. Not outsiders anymore, Kallio corrected firmly. Partners. Partners, Isolde agreed. Now shall we begin? 1 year later, Admiral Kallio Reigen stood at the command podium aboard the Defiance, a colossal vessel representing the first successful integration of human quantum slipspace technology with Concord gravitational engineering. Around her, a bridge crew comprising 17 different species worked in harmonious precision, a sight unimaginable just months earlier. Final systems check complete, reported First Officer Vela Nazario, her dark eyes reflecting the holographic displays surrounding them. All vessels report ready, Admiral. Kallio, promoted from Ambassador following the formation of the United Defense Initiative, surveyed the tactical display showing over 3,000 ships arranged in precise formation. The combined might of humanity and the Concord poised at the edge of the Helios sector where the void confluence had established its first major foothold. The quantum resonance array is aligned, announced Science Director Rosentek, the former Elder's crystalline form now modified with human-designed sensor interfaces. We can begin the transmission sequence whenever you're ready. Kallio nodded. Commence Operation Lighthouse. Throughout the fleet, specialized transmitters activated simultaneously, generating a precisely modulated quantum signal designed to pierce the confluence's consciousness network, the result of intense collaborative research between human quantum physicists and Malorian telepathic specialists. On the Defiance's main view screen, the target appeared, a massive confluence conversion hub, its twisted architecture already beginning to dismantle a gas giant for raw materials. The monstrosity, stretched nearly 200 kilometers from end to end, organic mechanical tendrils reaching out like some cosmic parasite. Signal penetrating their network, reported Communications Director Thrix, her bindings now interwoven with human-designed enhancers. We're receiving feedback patterns consistent with our models. Grand Admiral Verixian, serving as Kallio's second-in-command by mutual agreement between Earth and the Concorde, leaned forward. They're responding? More than responding, Thrix replied, excitement evident in her voice. They're listening. For centuries, the combined forces had assumed the void confluence was beyond communication, a force of cosmic destruction as impersonal as entropy itself. Initial attempts at contact had failed completely, but the breakthrough had come from an unexpected source: ancient human music. Dr. Eshal Nayan, Earth's leading xenolinguist, had discovered that the confluence's subspace communications followed patterns remarkably similar to certain mathematical sequences found in classical human compositions. From this insight came Operation Lighthouse, not a weapon, but a message. Phase 2, Kallio ordered. Throughout the fleet, secondary arrays activated. The message they broadcast wasn't threats or pleas, but something far more fundamental. Mathematical. Proofs demonstrating the concept of renewable energy systems, of sustainable existence, of symbiosis rather than consumption. The response was immediate. The massive confluence structure shuddered, its conversion processes temporarily halting. "They're processing," Dr. Nayan reported from her station, eyes fixed on incoming data streams. "The harmonic resonance is stable. They understand." For tense minutes, nothing happened. Then slowly, portions of the confluence structure began, reconfiguring, tendrils withdrawing from the gas giant. "By the ancestral stars," whispered Verixian. "It's working!" Kallio maintained her composure, though her heart raced. "Hold positions. Continue the transmission." The second phase of the message contained humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy: the mathematical framework for their revolutionary quantum energy extraction methods, systems that could harvest energy from the quantum foam itself without destroying. Conventional matter, technologies that had allowed Earth to flourish during its isolation, that had made their remarkable advancements possible. "Energy fluctuations in the confluence structure," reported Tactical Officer Ravi Okoye. "They're adapting the information in real time." A new pattern emerged from the confluence, a response in the same mathematical language they'd transmitted. Dr. Nayan worked feverishly to interpret. "It's gratitude," she finally announced, disbelief evident in her voice. "And something else, a history. They've been traveling between galaxies for millions of years, consuming because they knew no other way to sustain themselves. They didn't understand that alternatives existed." The implications stunned the bridge into silence. The existential threat facing the galaxy wasn't a malevolent force, but a tremendously ancient species locked in patterns of behavior it believed necessary for survival. "This changes everything," Verixian breathed. Kallio nodded slowly. "Yes, but we proceed carefully. Continue monitoring." Over the next several hours, the exchange deepened. The confluence shared its vast knowledge of intergalactic space, of phenomena no Concorde or human scientist had ever observed. In return, the United Fleet transmitted more sustainable energy frameworks, more examples of symbiotic existence. Finally, Admiral Reigen addressed the combined fleet, her voice transmitted to every ship in the Armada. "All vessels, this is Admiral Reigen. Today marks not the beginning of a war, but the start of a conversation. After a quarter millennium of silence, humanity returned to the galactic stage with a message, not of dominance, but of innovation, not of destruction, but of creation." She paused, looking around at the diverse crew that surrounded her. Humans, working alongside species that had once imprisoned them, all united by a common purpose. "We came prepared for battle, but instead we found understanding." The void confluence is transforming before our eyes, adopting the sustainable technologies we've shared. Their advance has halted. First contact has been established. Throughout the fleet, cheers erupted in hundreds of languages. 250 years ago, humanity was isolated because we were deemed too unpredictable, too dangerous for galactic society. Kaleo continued. Today, that same unpredictability, our refusal to accept conventional wisdom, our determination to find another way, may have saved countless lives across our galaxy. On the view screen, the confluent structure continued its transformation. Weapon systems converting to energy collection arrays modeled after the human designs. Let this day stand as proof that true strength comes not from isolation, but from cooperation, not from fear, but from understanding. Earth's long silence has ended, and our message will echo across the stars. Together, we can face any challenge. Together, we can forge a future worthy of all our civilizations. As her words spread throughout the fleet, then across subspace to the waiting worlds of the conquered and to distant Earth, the void confluence completed its transformation. From an instrument of destruction, it had become something new. The first bridge between galaxies, between forms of life so different they had believed communication impossible. Admiral Kaleo Reigen watched as the new era dawned, a quiet smile playing across her lips. After 250 years of silence, humanity had found its voice again, and the galaxy would never be the same.